So we are back with Between the Plies. This is where we dig in and talk about our guest and your journey. I think so many drummers, even though we all have our own path, can learn from each other's journeys and different things like that. It's just really good to talk and to talk about what we've been through and just get that out there into the world. And a lot of people can benefit and appreciate that. So yeah, we talked a little bit about it. You did start playing your dad's drums to start out.
Yeah, he was not a professional musician. He was an advertising guy, had a company, and but he played piano by ear fairly well, and he loved music. He had big stereo for that age, and just one day there's a set of drums. Yeah. I never gave a thought to anything like that until there it was.
So you said it was a Slingerland?
It was a Slingerland set.
Can I ask what finish it was?
I believe it was sort of silvery looking.
Nice.
I mean, it's been a long time, but
is this I'm not going to date you here, but was this the 60s?
Let's see. Well, you can date me. I don't mind. I'm actually happy to be as healthy and going like I am at this age, but brother. I was born in 53, so I was 12, so 65.
Nice. Wow. That's my favorite era of drums.
Really?
Like the 60s. I own 2 drum sets from the 60s. One is a Slingerland, one is a Lee.
Yeah.
I love that era of drums. That's why I was curious about the drums itself. I have a Slingerland. And that's so cool that you got
hi-hat, snare, 2 toms, floor tom, a ride, and a crash. So, nice little set.
I wonder where that drum set is now.
Oh, I do too. It went to the attic for a while, and then things kind of like started disappearing. I don't know, people swiped stuff, or one of my other brothers, or who knows.
Yeah. It's somewhere.
Yeah,
it's somewhere. It
moved away. But I had a couple of years to play with that, and as I mentioned, particularly Stevie Wonder's records kind of caught me, and a guy named Trini Lopez, who my father liked, who was a little more Latin kind of stuff, and kind of got me into like bell pattern stuff. So I did that for a while, and then his set went away, and my drumming went away. I didn't really connect that well with my parents and tell them what I was doing. I just played when they left.
Yeah.
Because I figured, they'd want to hear me back. I was a little shy too, It's like it didn't start out great,
Yeah. Yeah, but that was your first taste of it.
Right, but it got me really sensitized to rhythm. So from then, for my whole life now, I'm hearing the drums. I'm listening to the drums. I go to a concert. I'm watching the drummer. Just that's what got me. And that's how I started realizing. Okay, they're doing this. Stuff like that. And I you slowly figured it out. I never actually had a lesson. And then when I was, I guess, maybe 31, 32, I decided I need to play some drums some more. So I bought a used set up in my house, knew a keyboard player, knew a singer, and her husband who's a guitar player, and we just jammed. I called us Red Meat and the Song Butchers.
Wow.
Just as kind of a joke,
That's a great name.
I love these band names.
I love band names.
That keep coming up with our guests. This is great. This is fantastic.
That's good.
Red Meat and the Song Butchers. Yeah, so we had a lot of laughs over it, and we just played at my house. Never, And after we'd played maybe 10 or 12 times, I said maybe we ought to put like a set together and go play out somewhere. I don't know. The band just kind of disappeared. They were, no, these were the wrong people for that. They were happy to come and bash around at my house, but they're like, no, we're not doing that. So that kind of went away, and then I did a lot of theater in my life earlier, and I started working on putting together a one-man show. I did the whole performance poetry thing. I was in Chicago for 5 years, and performance poetry was kind of born there, which is where you get 3 minutes to get up, no props, no instruments, but 3 minutes of what do you got to say.
Wow.
And when people are, some people are astonishingly good at it, can like blow you away. So I got to see some of that. And after I had, probably 30, 40 different poems that I would perform, I realized, okay, I need to put together a one-man show, and which I did. It was called Son of White Man, The Naked Truth.
Wow.
Another compelling title. I'm into
great.
Titles. I'm into names.
Yeah.
And so I did. There was a fringe theater festival circuit that across Canada. The Canadians figured out how to do this thing where they would have a 10-day festival in one side of the country, and then they'd have every other week skipping across the country. Yeah. So probably 30 different companies, and me and a woman, I did my one-man show, went across Canada one summer. And in 94, I saw these three men from Ghana playing djembes, just kind of jamming there on the street.
Okay.
And it happened to be in Victoria, British Columbia. And these guys are right there. We were in the harbor. I heard the harbor was beautiful. I went down and had a look. Well, here's Barbara Streisand's giant yacht, helicopter on the back, couple of tough guys up, security on the thing. But it was
Barbara's not even in there.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. So I saw these guys playing. I sat and watched them for an hour, and I'd never seen a djembe or heard anything like this. But I was like, this is my thing right there. There it is. So they got finished, and I went and tried to talk to him. One of the guys' name was Hunter, and he had a little bit of English, and he told me what the drum was, and I said, man, where did I get that? And he said, I brought one with me that my friend made to help me finance my trip. And I said, well, bring it tomorrow and I'll buy it. So I just bought this djembe, and it wasn't brilliant, but it was pretty good. It was a good starter djembe. And I took it home. I'm like, where's anybody playing this? What is this? And they said, well, men's group are doing some stuff. And then there's this drum circle over at this woman's house. They did it in a theater, and now they've been doing it in her house. So I went to that. And there were people just jamming, and people were dancing, and it was just really happy and kind of intense. And everybody's just kind of blibbity blobbity blibbity blobbity. Most people didn't have any training or any language, but still they were having a great time.
Yeah.
So okay, that's cool. Everybody starts somewhere, so finally, one night I'm like, okay, I'm realizing, okay, we're playing this rhythm. It's this basic, Middle Eastern kind of thing that you hear in lots of music, right? So then next thing you know, 4 or 5 of us are doing it, and we're just thinking, this is the best thing that ever happened in the world. Oonga, 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 oonga.
Like a calypso kind of.
Exactly, yeah. And a couple of women who were really lovely were dancing intensely and joyfully. So that really put a hook in me. And so I started thinking, okay, what are some more rhythms, some more patterns? Yeah. And I felt really lucky. I was able to go home and actually remember it. Usually you're there in the moment, it goes by. I don't know what I just did. Yeah. So I remembered a pattern finally, and then I realized what else is out there. And I looked around, and then I spotted, there's West African traditions where apparently they've literally been at it for centuries, like for hundreds of years. Some kind of percussive thing is happening. And now it's developed to it's really profound. One of the lead guys of the world, Mamadi Keita, I think he said there were something like 300 rhythms that you could know from various subcultures of the Malinke group. And he said you kind of have to be born into it to really get a lot of those. But guys like me, I know about 20, and I know of 50 or 60, and guys like this guy, Mamadi Keita, he's produced DVDs, and he started with VHS, and there's books, and he's actually put schools around the world so you can kind of learn that style. It's out of Guinea, West Africa. So anyway, then I started realizing, okay, there's a West African thing. And then luckily for me, in Nashville, there was a woman who liked African dance, and she had a thing she called Global Education Center. So she would bring people in. And she had a couple of young men she'd taken in, a couple of African-American lads, and they were like naturals, and they played really well. So she was doing everything she could to nurture them. And she had guys like Mamadi Keita and Les Percussions de Guinée, which was a troupe that came in, and other, in that area, famous playing since they were kids kind of drummers. So I went and always did their classes and realized, okay, there's a kind of a real language that you have, and there's all these rhythms where you can, there's 2 or 3 djembes playing patterns, ba da ba bo da ba da ba unkoro ga duru da duru da duru da duru da, and those are accompaniments that can be played and mixed with on top of doom da doom doom da, or ding ding dong ding ding dong, and they play, and the King Howland's going beep 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 beep, so you get basically 3 stick drums, all at different pitches, low, medium, and high, each with bells. So those are 6 rhythmic patterns that are happening. And then you got 2 or 3 djembes with 3 more patterns. And then the djembe players typically, and sometimes the dundus, will take turns soloing, which adds a lot of fun. And of course, in those traditions, a lot of what it's about is marking the steps and inspiring dancers to do stuff. So it's
an incredible thing, and it's one of those times where your eyes open about it. And even just talking with you and with Rich, and I know I talked to Ken Meyer, who did our first one, about it a little bit, and he gave me some brief background on some stuff. I didn't realize what it was all about. Like from our perspective, being drum set players, we're like, yeah, like drum circles and like hand drum players, they basically break down what we do. Like what we do with our right foot is like a bass drum, and like one guy plays that,
Right.
and one guy plays what we're playing on the hi hats, but it's like a rhythmic thing over here, and one guy play. It's not as simple as yeah, we take our four limbs and make it simple, and four people play simple things. It's really about crafting this whole ecosystem of rhythms that work well together.
Well, what you just did there was a great demonstration where you just kind of mouthed the different rhythms that all of the instruments would be playing to create one, rhythmic force. I'm like,
Right.
the way you did that was so cool.
Yeah,
Nice. That was so neat. I'm like, you're like, ding, 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 ding. And you're playing this over here. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
it can make for some deep magic.
Yeah,
now,
absolutely.
drum circles, for a lot of people, what drum circles are, they're a way to kind of go out into the world and help people have some kind of beginning as a musical performing person. Just to be able to get into the groove and be okay. Because it's scary for people to get up.
It sure is. But the thing about it that no one talks about too is that rush of adrenaline and whatever is released when you're playing.
Yeah.
And that euphoric state that you're in when you're in the zone and you're playing. Drummers are not drummers, but runners get it. When you
Right.
have that like
a flow state, you
that,
might
that
call
you
it.
you feel so good, and we don't talk about that enough. And that's where I think people are craving something like that, and they don't realize it. They want to play music, and because that's in them. It's
Right.
in them,
Yeah.
and it's ready to come out. And once it does, they fall in love with. I don't care what you play, just play an instrument.
Right.
Drums are my favorite, but
Right.
if you want to start, I mean, gosh, go to a drum circle, get started there, because it is a natural high that everyone is chasing, that everyone wants, and we don't talk about it enough. It's just such a good feeling when you're in the zone playing.
Right. So drum circles can be, done with really all beginners, and a good drum circle facilitator kind of helps people figure out ways just to do something, to get some kind of groove going. And sometimes it's not musically, that brilliant. But it is brilliant that people are getting a beginning, getting a start. Many drum circles, like the one I'm going to do here, anybody at any level, all are welcome. And everybody can add some kind of pattern of something that adds to the whole. People can be really a beginner and be tentative and play softly and have a beginning, and that's okay. Others come out and like, I got some stuff for you here, and they'll throw down, and it can be great. Conversations get happening with each other, and so drum circles can be not musically great, or they can produce. Sometimes you get into flow state and your a thing is going and you're like, where did that pattern come from? That little thing I did there, it's just like, it just magically comes in somehow. You get in the groove, you get creative, things come in, and everything takes practice and tons of it. You want to get really great, but drum circles are a great way. You can do something, you can begin, and you can develop.
And my misconception I always found over the years with drum circles were just a bunch of guys playing drums aimlessly, just banging on drums, And it's great when there's someone like you there to kind of, facilitate, like just you play this rhythm and kind of give people direction to kind of build upon that.
Right.
And not just drum. I mean, that's fine, but, you need some kind of direction, and you want it to be some type of learning experience as well. You want to learn. You don't just want to put your head down and just everyone's just making noise.
Right. The drum circles, it's a pretty big, wide subject, and the subject of drum circle facilitation is a really interesting thing. There's several people who've done a lot to help people understand or kind of develop tools, language, ways of facilitating a drum circle. And I'm happy to give a plug to Arthur Hull. He's a guy in his 70s now out in California, and he started getting the idea about what can we do. He actually, one of the stories that come in his book, he has a couple of books, and I totally recommend them. One of the stories in the book was he was at a rainbow gathering, which are kind of these freedom fest. They go to national park land and just do a thing, and they don't tell the park rangers. And sometimes it's gotten big and out of control. But anyway, they do it on the 4th of July. There's typically a great big drum circle, and so Arthur tells the story of, I went to the great big drum circle, and a lot of people just going like mad, and some of them get kind of disconnected. They're still having their experience, and it's kind of loud and crazy. And then he goes back to his camp, and on the way back he hears this drumming that's like, this is really something. Well, it turns out it was a group of women, and they were more frame drums, shakers, and they were playing softer. And he just kind of crept up and looked at them, and they looked at him, and he's like, I'm okay. What he realized was that they're really listening to each other, and they're really playing together rather than like the other circle. A lot of people were just gaggity, 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 gaggity. So those drum circles can be where you can really listen to each other and create really magical, cool stuff. Or you can be, what they call a thunder drummer, and you're just blabbity, 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 which can be fun.
Yeah, I was going to say, but both are cool.
Yeah.
But it's great to know that there's different versions of it out there, and I think it's cool to have a facilitator, especially if there's a lot of beginners. It's
Right.
cool, if there's guys that are more advanced and more confident, you can kind of feed off each other. You maybe not need somebody telling everyone what to play.
Right.
But when you're doing beginner drum circles, you need somebody to facilitate that and kind of, guide everybody.
Yeah. Arthur's helped a lot. Literally thousands of people around the world have a way of working with groups, and you can there's this thing where you can facilitate from the side, they say, where nobody kind of realizes it, but you're the guy who, I either got a foot trigger or a bell on my foot, and I'm playing something loud and clear and steady, so people got something to hang on to. So oftentimes the drum circles, the ones with the most skill, are playing simple, steady, and loud, where everybody has something to hang on to.
Yeah. So you picked up. Obviously, we went off into drum circle land, but let's talk about your time in Nashville. So, I imagine you've already integrated yourself within the community. You've had a couple gatherings. You've reached out to all these musical people. I see on all the pages reaching out to people saying, "Hey, what's up?"
Right.
And so I imagine in Nashville it was the same idea, right? Like you developed that skill of just networking with so many people.
Right. I'm somewhat of a natural teacher, and I did a lot of work in acting and performance poetry and stuff. So, I'm a guy with a mouth and not afraid to use it.
No, it's great. Yeah.
So as I started doing drum circles and having so much fun every Tuesday night at Leith's house on Essex, that was the famous drum circle that happened for about 6 years. And then I started studying the West African style, and I realized that this guy Mamadi had a book and he had some stuff. So I started who wants to learn some of this? And few people joined in, so that kind of created a group where we knew some traditional grooves. And time came where I said, man, I love drums. That's the name of my band, the Love Drums. That's my company, the Love Drums. Nice. So, I have the lovedrums.com.org.us, and I have, I've got a CD. That's if you can see that's kind of my logo there. And I have an album on all the platforms, and that that looks like that.
That's neat. That's where the name came from.
Check it out.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
It's
simple.
It's all about branding, baby.
Yeah. So the Love Drums was begun. There was a group, and I've had maybe 40 different people all told play in the group, and some of them have been extremely skilled and really good, and others are students who are kind of coming on. But I have a couple dozen things that are in my repertoire. And that's also typically what I teach at University School in Nashville, which had elementary, middle, and high. I taught, maybe 3,000 classes in the middle school.
Yeah.
And I had performing groups that did stuff, and people were astonished what they did. We'd go to the school assembly and play stuff, and I'd get a couple of ringer dancer people to say, get up and start a conga line, that thing where you got a hand on the shoulder, ding, 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 ding. And we'd literally have had 200 students jamming around the thing, and I've had
great.
teachers come up after going, oh my gosh, I've never seen such as that, So it can get really exciting to learn some grooves that, and for me, it's, I hear a pattern, it makes you feel good, makes you feel light, makes you want to dance, makes you bump, makes you tap. Those are the things I do. I just remember those and pick out rhythms that I like. So I've built up a couple dozen that I think of as my primary repertoire.
Yeah. Yeah, and you've established. I didn't realize you had that much impact as far as like teaching from the teaching side of things as well. That's awesome.
Right. So I also I wanted to have a community drum and dance event, so I created a thing called the Love Drums Community Drum and Dance Whiz Bang. Whiz Bang was a type of firework when I was a child that went.
Yeah.
It was a whiz bang.
That sounds awesome.
That's a great,
Yeah, so
name.
I did it actually 99 times, so somehow it didn't quite get to 100. 100 is waiting to happen
Oh, my
somewhere,
God.
sometime. And I got some people nationally, like, come on, man, when's 100? When are we going to put this together?
Yeah.
Like, well, so I can get the band kind of back to full speed. But anyway, we did 99 events, and it was typically a 3-hour event. The Love Drums would play a set about 45 minutes. We'd have a little break. Sometimes we'd have a singer or somebody could play a balafone, a jill, which are wooden xylophone type deals, or a belly dancer might come up and do a thing with a doumbek player, and then we'd have an open drum circle where everybody got to play with the Love Drums, and those would totally rock. And I did things like I did a belly dance night. There was a time where belly dance was huge in Nashville, and there were like 10 different troops.
Wow.
Every one of them came and did a couple of numbers. Awesome. We did another event where we had everybody bring your bowls, your bells, like singing bowls and all that, and we must have had 100 different ones. So we kind of orchestrated about a 15-minute ringy dingy woo 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 thing that was
That's a cool
crazy.
idea.
That's crazy. Yeah.
That was crazy cool.
Bring your own.
That's awesome. And there's a lot of instrumentation, and especially when you get into like the meditative side of things, where you only see those. There's only one in the room, or there's only one. To have a community of people bring those sort of instruments together is really cool.
Right. If you go to my YouTube channel, The Love Drums has a channel, and look on there for the video that's Whiz Bang number 50, part 3, and you will see a parade of 150 people around this. It's actually a Unitarian Universalist church that had this incredible stone building and room that we got to play in. Wow. So yeah, we got about 200 people marching around, and I'm leading with a bell.
Yeah.
Doing a.
And everyone's digging it. And everyone's loving it.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And everyone's involved.
Yeah. Everyone's participating.
Right.
That's great.
it.
We had a guy playing a timbale. We had people playing doon-doons, people playing djembes, doumbeks, lots of shakers.
Any marching snare drummers? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, the one guy was marching, but I think it was a timbale, not a snare. But I love the Brazilian stuff too. I haven't gotten super into that, but give me a good samba parade. There's a local group, Music for Everyone.
Yep.
Yeah, and Matt Woodson, do y'all know him?
Yeah.
Y'all should know him. He led a little samba kind of a parade with about 12 kids that he had taught a basic groove. Diggy, 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 doom, diggy, 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 doom, with snares doing a thing. And it was super cool. And I just went with a tambourine and tagged along. But samba, Brazilian stuff is cool too. But
Absolutely.
I haven't gone super deep into that yet. But.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because a lot from the drum set point of view, which is my point of view,
right?
My initial point of view for like everything, for the percussion side of things is working at the shop, which I recommend. I highly recommend working at a drum shop. You want to learn because you're gonna have to.
Yeah.
It's amazing when you do. But there's so much, in my mind. I was like, yeah, here's the drum set stuff and cymbals and stands and stuff, and then over there is like that's all the percussion stuff, and that's one group. But then you start to learn which regions they come from, and which patterns and which rhythms, and it's really worldwide percussion that is all, it's not all just thrown over there because that's something that makes a sound effect. You know what I mean? There's so much to it, and there's so much thought behind the construction of the instruments and different things like that really affect the tonalities that you need for certain types of music. It's a big world.
And you saying that you led the charge with the tambourine, talk about, I think, an underrated instrument. Like, everyone thinks a tambourine is like, oh, it's a tambourine. Like, what you can do with a tambourine if you're skilled.
Yeah.
Like, the sounds you can pull out of it, and there's such an underrated instrument. Tambourine.
They are, and now, of course, and I see you got a bunch of them downstairs. The tambourine sticks, because you can hit it against a drumstick. It's lighter weight. You can, and I have one that I've rigged up with a foot trigger that I'm hitting with a bass drum pedal. So yeah, those are super fun. So one more thing. So kind of the full circle. So I start with a drum set, and then I steer off into more sort of African drum circle-y stuff. And then 2 months ago, a guy rides his bike, an e-bike, slick-looking e-bike in front of my house. I love e-bikes.
Yeah.
And so I flagged him, and I said, "Man, let me check your bike out." Well, it turns out he was a bass player. He was he's just turning 50. He'd played in a cover band a good long time in his 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
And so now he's having his 50th birthday party, 70s theme, and he heard I was a drummer. He said, "Do you play drum set?" And I said, "Well, sort of. I know basic. I can play it basic." And he said, "Well, would you come and..." So anyway, I just played for a guy's 50th birthday party,
Nice.
and we did 5 songs. Like We Got the Beat and The Joker and some 70s numbers like that.
That's
so
awesome.
we rehearsed 3 times, and I listened to those things a lot, to see if I could figure out, okay, how are they beginning, how are they ending, what are the fills like?
You want to be prepared.
Like, is this guy drunk? He's hitting the crash at the oddest times.
It's amazing, right?
You
start thinking
those
of
weird
things like that, because I try to play, if I'm doing a cover song, I try to play it like they're playing it, but I always remember I'm not that kind of guy.
Yeah.
I have to put my own spin on it, and you have to do that. So it's like, okay, he's playing it over here. It's a little funky, but I'm going to do it like this. So.
Yeah, The Joker, the Steve Miller song, it's, most of what I play is upbeat. So, play that slow. I'm like, Ed, don't quit speeding it. Ed, you're speeding it up. Okay, sorry, I'm speeding it up. So I finally figured out how to not speed it up. But I counted the drummer hit the crash 14 times before the first chorus came up. And it's like, wow, okay, he's got to be drunk, or I don't understand. I don't understand his pattern, but I'd love to hear from him.
Yeah.
What, how's it coming?
I know.
You know what?
It's all influences of what you're used to.
Yeah,
that guy, they didn't really think too much. I think right now we overthink things too much, and probably then they're just kind of like, all right, let's roll. And he's just in the studio, probably a second take.
Yeah,
just
never played the same twice.
Yep, exactly.
That's all you got to remember.
Right,
that's all you got to remember. But speaking, you played at this guy's house. I checked out your house and your drum room and collection and everything. Let's talk about your collection of gear, because it's not just drums. Sean, you got to come over and see.
And now, so you moved all of this stuff up from Nashville.
I was lucky enough.
Probably 2 truckloads
full of drums
stuff, right?
Yeah. It took a lot to move. Yeah, I had a pretty big place down in Nashville. I had kind of a community house. I rented rooms. I Airbnb'd for a couple of years. So I had a pretty big space, and there were, people were living in my barn and whatnot. So we did have quite a lot to move. I was lucky enough to be teaching and performing at a thing called Drum and Splash at a community a few hours away from here. And while I was there, on the 4th of July, I walked to see my drum vendor buddy. He's a big, burly, engineer kind of guy, makes drums. And I feel this itch. I'm like, what is that? And I'm like, is that a tick? And he's going, yeah, man, you got a tick. So he pulls up a little bitty pair of pliers, and he's going to get the tick. Well, right over here is this darling woman in a black bikini at the jewelry vendor. And, well, it turns out she'd been in healthcare for 25 years. So she came over and stopped and said, let me handle that for you. So she took me to her tent and fixed me up. And we fell madly in love.
Nice.
It was fantastic. Yeah. Well, she moved to Nashville, and we lived there for 8 years, and now we're back here. Our grandchildren, her daughter, are here. So that's how I wound up in Lancaster.
Okay.
And happy to be here. But I brought a lot of gear. So my drum room, I do have 4 really great djembes, all African hardwood, 1 with cowskin and 3 with goat. A lot of people typically like to experiment with different skins. Mostly they're goat, but it's fun to play with calf too. It's thicker, a little harder, but and then I have a great set of doon-doons. And the way I like to do doon-doons is what they would call ballet style, where you have 3 strapped together. And my big one is this diameter and that tall. And I have it that and the other 2 with a a ratchet strapped together, but hung on a 2-wheel dolly that I've made the bottom plate bigger so I can rock it back and wheel it.
Move it, yeah.
I can move it, and it's got 2 bells. One of them looks a lot like that one there. I'm going to go home and look at it. Is this one of those?
It might be.
It's that size, and so I've got a couple of bells, a couple of wood blocks on it, and a bunch of strung a bunch of lights on it. So I got a set of dunes. I got a talking drum. Remo has one of their best made sort of African recreations is their big talking drum. So I got that talking drum and a Meinl Doombeck, just like you got downstairs. Those things are fantastic little drums.
Absolutely.
Right. I got a couple of congas. I got a cajon. And there's a thing called a crin, a log drum, and they're typically this, from this big to maybe this big. And what they do is they cut a slat out about like so, and another one a little smaller. So you have 2 keys, and they dig it all out in there. So dee-dee-da-da, dee-dee-da-da. And there's interesting stuff that you can do. In fact, I love the idea. You guys, stick drummers, come over and let's have us a jam on my crin, K-R-N, crin. So I've made 6. I'm trying to figure out how to make them. It's not that easy to figure out and make them sound brilliant like my African ones.
Right.
So I got 6 crins and a wall full of bells. The Zydeco tie. Have you seen that? Those are wacky. I got a Zydeco tie. So and I got a couple of an old set of Macintosh speakers that were in their day. They were $9,000.
Yeah.
There's columns of 20 tweeters per side.
Nuts.
So it's kind of ridiculous. Yeah, my stepfather bought these long ago. He was kind of eccentric, and I inherited them. So I got a crazy big stereo there, and me and GarageBand and a MacBook.
Yeah.
That's
simple.
And SM57 and SM81 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And
The little condenser and the dynamic mic, you're good to go.
so I'm working on
That's it.
another album, but it's my drum room. It's got exposed wooden beams and pictures of drummers on the wall. And
masks, everything. The
Yeah.
whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where every drummer needs space for their stuff, and
Sure do.
we all settle in.
Yeah.
Settle into the room a little
It's
bit,
kinda
feel
fun.
it out, and
Seeing guys drum room. Okay, I have a drum room. We
Yeah,
all
yeah.
have it, So it's so neat to see everyone's like take on their space.
that's another idea. I was saying we should go to drum shops. We should go to check out everyone's drum rooms.
That's
let me
cool.
see your drum
Drums,
room.
etc.
That's a great
Check out
idea.
this drum room, and you go in and you talk about what they have, their
Yeah.
collection, where they got everything.
The podcast writes itself.
That's it. It'll be
Because,
the whole show.
My
That's it.
gosh, we could just go to your house and you would just talk about the different
Yeah,
instruments.
yeah.
And just like
Bring it.
content.
That's
Yeah.
it. That's
all
it.
there.
That'd be great. Cool. So we talked about that, but also we meaning me recently started reheading djembes the past year or so. I've done probably 10, probably up to 10 at this point.
Cool.
Just say a
Which is
dozen.
not every day. Just not every day. Yeah,
a dozen.
a dozen. If I say a dozen, I have to say a baker's dozen.
Say Baker's dozen.
Baker's dozen or so.
Just FYI, I've done over 100, so I have
Yeah.
a little knowledge too, and
Yeah, no.
we should
I was
commiserate on this.
I was literally. That's why I brought it up, because I know
Okay.
you've done it for a while, and we talked about it a little bit at the drum circle, and we were like, we'll talk later. But it's one of those things where it's obviously I'm new to the game of doing it. I have a friend who's from South Africa originally, and so he has some knowledge of it, and he taught me how to do it, and the knots and this and that. But,
You're quite good.
oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm getting a little bit more confident now, but it's one of those
Nice.
things where it's practice makes perfect, and you don't
Yeah.
have a lot of practice.
Yeah,
That's what it's-
yeah.
But anyway, we do that here, and I'm sourcing different heads from different places, and you want a little thicker, thinner. What size do you need? How much overlap?
Is Ed the
And
guy that you
he's
taught
the
you
guy.
the different styles of heads and animals and everything?
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
you had told me that information, but go ahead.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about it, and you were saying, and we talked. Ariel was here at the drum circle. And we were talking a little
Right.
bit about. Afterwards, I talked to her, and she's like, "I just have goat skin, some pretty thin goat skin." And she's like, "Well, if you get some calf skin," I'm like, "All right, sounds good." So I was talking with my vendors. I'm going to get some calf skin pre-cut in and different things. I don't know if I'm going to go as far as starting to shave all the heads or anything like that, but you have a ton of experience with it, so I wanted to quickly talk
Yeah.
to you about maintenance because. it's not as simple as loosening a couple tension rods, swapping out a plastic head on a drum set.
Right.
You got to take the ropes off. You got to do that whole thing.
Right. I'm
So-
just realizing I had so much to show in my drum room. I forgot to say, let me show you my shop. This is where I fix drums, and here's my skins. And
Well,
here's
that's when we come over.
Yeah, we'll hit that too.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
For sure. So if you could talk just a little bit about like maintaining a lot of these drums, djembes being the most obvious, but
Right.
what have you had to do?
Yeah, well, so some drums don't need much. You got you a metal Doombeck, they don't need much. That's the beauty of them. They're lightweight. They're really cool. You get you a traditional hand-carved, hardwood, or they can be softwood too, but a djembe with a goat skin on it. Well, what they do is they have steel rings, which is relatively modern. In the old days, the old teachers say, they weren't able to tune drums like they can now. So they have like a quarter-inch round piece of steel, and you have two of them. So if you can think about the drum sitting here, you get the skin and you soak it for an hour or two, get it wet, and it flops over. Well, a ring goes down, and then you pull the skin up like so, and another ring goes down and sits on the other one, so the skin is squeezed between the two of them. And the top ring has cradle knots that go zip, 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 zip on the bottom, when there's a ring on the bottom, lower on the drum as well, so verticals go up and down from these cradles that are tied on the rings all the way on the drum. So you have to tighten them up slowly. You got to keep the rings level. It's easy to get it screwed up, get it wrong. So that's what you're dealing with is a couple of steel rings, and nowadays we have rope. People are typically using 4 or 5 millimeter super low stretch stuff that's been developed for sailing and climbing and different applications. They got rope that's like incredibly strong for 4 and 5 millimeters that can take. And to get a traditional drum, if you want to play it like what you would call solo tuning, they have so much tension, you'd be astonished. I break a sweat a couple of times getting a drum up to speed. You can have your drum tuned low or high. Some of the great masters that have come through the States, Kungbanan Konde and Famadou Konate, these are some famous names. They're like, what we've played with mostly is, the soloist has got one, da, da, da. Everybody else is lower, and they're different, which adds some color. So you don't necessarily have to have a drum that's hyper cranked, but you can now. You got $1,000. You can go to, Woola Drum. You can go to Drum Skull, and they got some drums that will just blow you away for $1,000. And you look at violins and what they cost. It's like, it's a hell of a deal.
Oh yeah, drums. Just sorry to interrupt, but the cost of entry as far as instruments are concerned, drums is low.
Right.
I mean,
really
you get a whole drum set for
Trumpet.
$500. You know what I mean? And I know that sounds it's still $500. Not saying
Violin,
that's, but
those things.
compared to
Flute.
it's not thousands of dollars to get
Saxophone.
something. And
Yeah.
you can buy,
If you're priced out a
couple
high-end
pieces.
sax.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a
Yeah.
$400 or $500 djembe,
Right.
That's
What
credible.
more do you need?
Right.
Jeez,
Right. So, there's a way of, once you have the rope and they're tuned like that, there's a way of running the rope between them and make it so that they pull together and it adds tension down. So you can tune the drums that way. But the main thing was with the skin djembe is don't get it wet. I don't take my really cranked ones out even in really moist air. I like to keep them inside.
I have a nice, authentic djembe. I've had it for a number of years. I think maybe mid-2000s I got this thing.
Right.
And it sits in my drum room, and I don't take it out either. I've never had a lick of issues with it. A lot of guys, when they're purchasing rope-tuned djembes, are real scared of that. They're like, oh my gosh, well, what happens if I, break this? And I'm like, well, you know what? You do have to be careful with it. It is a musical instrument, so I don't take mine out. But if I did, I would certainly have a bag for it. But it's held its tuning all these years, and it still sounds good. Still sounds great.
Yeah, you get one tuned up right and keep it in basically dry air, and they'll stay well. I mean, the most vulnerable thing, one is people don't know any better. They think it's a seat. Oh. They think it's a chair to sit on. I've seen 250-pound guys sitting on my drum at a party. I'm like,
Yeah.
And it didn't break it. It didn't ultimately hurt it, but still, it's a little shocking to see.
Yeah.
I've had to stop myself too, and I've had to stop my band members from putting their beer down on my drum.
Right,
That's
and then
a
you
big
got a
no-no.
wet ring. Not good.
I've also set up and use my phone to practice, listen to music, and I'm ready to put it down on the djembe sitting next to me. I'm like, nope. I have a table next to me now,
Right.
But I would be ready to do that. I go, nope. because I tell others not to do that because it's bad for the drum, and I
Right.
don't want to have to. Now that I know somebody, 2 guys that could rehead my djembe
Right,
for me,
right.
maybe I won't care as much, you know.
Right. Well, my
I'll get the
djembes-
sweetheart deal on it, hopefully.
Absolutely. My djembes, I have a cap that fits on it. It's
Yeah.
almost like a toilet seat cover, but you
Yeah.
can get them, kind of nicely made. So I keep if I keep a cap on it
a
unless
good
it's in my
idea.
drum room. You never know. Dogs love some goat skin. They're gonna love to chew on that for you. So,
yeah.
so protect it from animals, protect it from moisture. And as you carry a djembe, some people I've reskinned a lot of djembes where people didn't think about it, and they're carrying it like so with the big end here, wham into the door jamb, and where the skin goes over the edge. It's quite vulnerable. It's not like a drum set. You got a metal ring protecting it. It's like wham, poppies up. You're done. So just protect the skin from moisture and animals and impact. If you carry it in a car, lodge it so it's not going anywhere. You don't want to be hitting. I've had to reskin plenty of drums. I hit the brakes, bam, there went the drum.
Yep, exactly.
And don't leave it in a super hot car.
Don't leave it in your car. And even with cajones, with drum sets, with all sorts of stuff, I can't tell you how many times I tell someone and the light bulb goes off in their head. I say, buckle it in like a person.
Right.
Yeah.
But
There
the
you
most
go.
important thing is play it.
Yeah.
That is the most important thing.
Yeah.
You need
Play
to
it.
play the instrument.
Yeah.
Drums want to be played.
That's it. That's what their purpose is, And we talk. Sean and I talk a lot about guys being afraid to take drum sets out, and I'm kind of getting tired of hearing that conversation.
Right. Yeah.
I'm almost to the point that should be a crank it up, turn it down, or something.
Yeah.
Taking out nice drums.
Yeah.
You know, in
What'd you
my
get 'em
mind,
for?
I'm like, that's what it's for.
Yeah,
man.
you
know
got
what I mean?
a
Like,
nice drum
some
set to
people
take
are,
out.
and I'm not saying you want to take your really super nice kit to some basement show you're playing in Philly or something.
Right.
But I'm just saying, you know what I mean? You don't know what to expect, and people are carrying it in and out. You're going through a hatch, like in the basement, it's raining. Like, no, I'm not saying that. But at the same point, it's like, what else are you gonna do with it?
Right.
You're just gonna sit, let it sit there and look at it. You know what I mean? And I understand how
Live
it'll
a
hold its
little.
value. Play the drums, man. That you bought them because you love them, and I
Yeah.
encourage people to play them. Obviously, be careful about certain things, but I think we've gone too far the other way, where people are babying their gear a little too much, where they're not actually playing as often as they should.
Yeah. Around Nashville, I see a lot of people with a cajon.
For sure.
And some of them got a foot pedal hitting the bass. And myself, I'm a little older, a lot of leaning over for very long.
Yeah.
It gets tiresome. So Meinl, I don't know if you have these, but they have brushes-like things that are made for the cajon. Yeah, they're fantastic. So you can
Yeah,
just
we got 'em.
totally sit up and wail.
We've also got slap top cajones.
Yeah.
Which they're
Oh,
like T-shaped.
yeah.
And you play on top kind of like a conga.
And
Right,
also, they have a cajon stand. I know it's kind of funky, kind of almost defeats the purpose of the cajon because you're supposed to sit on it and play, but it sits in a stand so you can stand up and play the instrument.
That's cool.
Which is kind of cool.
Really
Yeah.
nice
Yeah.
for a multi-percussionist that has, say, congas or some other drums or bells or even a drum set. You can angle it at
Or-
whatever angle and just reach over and just
Or
play
like
on
you
it.
said, you're
Back
bending
on.
over. Sometimes that's a little uncomfortable, but you like the sound you get out of a cajon.
Yep.
Right.
It's a beatbox. You got
Yeah.
the snares in there. It's just
And what's one
so
stand?
much fun to play
Compared to a whole drum
Oh.
set, or what's one stand?
Forget
you can
about
handle
it.
one stand.
Forget about it.
You
Yeah.
can handle one piece of hardware.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, do you have anything else that you'd like to comment on as far as the Love drums or anything? Are you playing out at all in town or?
Well, no, the Love drums presently, pretty much all of my people are 750 miles
Gotcha.
away.
I wonder. Yeah.
Although
gotcha.
I'm kind of looking for, who wants to play, who wants to come over and, I'll show you some grooves and
Yeah.
play. And if it worked out to be something that could play out, I'd be up for that. I've done that a lot. But so right now, I don't really have a performing group good
Yeah.
to go. Though I know a few drummers, if somebody said, hey, man, we got this thing, really need you, I'd like, one local treasure, relatively local treasure is Tammy Hessen. She studied a lot with the great drummer Mamadi Keita, and she's really accomplished, knows a ton. She teaches around, and so there are people around who have a plenty high enough level to play that some sort of Love drums could happen. But right now, recording is what I'm doing.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
and playing at my neighbor's birthday party on a drum set.
Hey,
that
man.
was a super fun drum circle, and I've met a couple of guys who are experts with violins. One guy who's played in orchestras all around Pennsylvania and in Europe, and another guy who's teaching summer camps. And he's like, these guys are just like incredible. So they're like, yeah, just throw me a groove down. I want to improvise over it. You know, I think they've played so much where I'm playing somebody else's music and I'm reading. For them, it's it can be a real joy to just just throw me down something. And make it weird, Give me a 7, give me a 5, which I can do a little bit of, or something Middle Eastern,
But it challenges you.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
Yeah, and can I hold this nice and steady like
That's
I did
right.
the other day for 12 minutes?
Yeah,
we had a guitar player and this guy on his electric violin. It's just like, it's incredible. Like, man, you really went some places. And then he's plucking it, just like so.
It's incredible.
So I'm playing with violin players as well. And actually,
cool.
my a lot of us get some kind of church gig.
Yeah.
I met one of the violin players. It's a Jewish man, and he said, "Well, we have these Friday night services where we play these, and they're beautiful pieces of music. So I'm doing occasional church gig at the Temple Bethel locally."
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, hey, a lot of local drummers listen to this podcast. You want to get together if you're interested in learning about that sort, any sort of hand drumming or West African specific or anything like that.
Right.
Come out to a drum circle.
Yeah.
First and foremost, come out to a drum circle.
We're here this coming. Of course, right.
Saturday.
This will be dated, but Saturday. What's the date of Saturday?
The 8th.
But it's going to happen again.
It's going to happen again.
They keep coming. Yeah. So
Yeah,
And we're gonna keep getting facilitators in. I'm not gonna let him go. Even if he moves back to Nashville, I'm gonna have him come up here for drum circle.
No, we're happily here.
All right, good. We're happily here. It's on the record. He's not leaving. But Ed, thanks so much for being here, man.
What a pleasure. What a pleasure.
I can't thank you enough.
So glad you guys are here, and what a resource for everybody just to have this kind of gear here and this kind of knowledge here.
Yeah. We're glad you're here, dude. Absolutely. This
Thanks.
is tremendous.
Thanks.
I can't wait for this Saturday.
Yeah.
It's gonna be great.
We'll have some fun.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us at Drum Key here. We love and appreciate all your support. Shop at your local drum shop. If you don't have one, we'd be happy to adopt you, but that's how this whole thing keeps working, keeps going. Thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next time.